Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So this is going to be my Flash versus Arrow video. So many awesome things in this episode, and while we were getting ready for it, a whole bunch of big DC news dropped. We found out who the cast of the Suicide Squad movie is going to be, which big villain is coming back to Arrow in the back half of the season, and what the lasting impact of this big crossover is going to be for both shows, like how it's going to influence what happens in episode 9 for both series. So what I'm going to do, since there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, is I'm going to do Flash stuff first from the episode, then I'll do Easter eggs, my review, and then I'll talk about the new stuff like Suicide Squad. So careful for spoilers from the episode if you haven't seen it yet. I'm going to do top 10 moments just because so much crazy stuff happened. So number 10, Eddie versus the Flash, or Eddie Thawne versus the Flash. Things are starting to get meta now because of the Thawne name in Eobard Thawne and Professor Zoom. Just a day in the life of the Flash. It seemed like a relatively minor thing in this episode. Who wouldn't set up a task force to try and take down a metahuman? It happens on all the Batman shows. Like, the police are always out to get Batman, so of course they're going to go after the Flash. The thing is that I keep thinking that in some way Eddie is either going to turn into the Hunter Zolomon Zoom, or he's going to somehow be involved with the big villain this season, even if he doesn't turn into the Reverse Flash. It's like the love triangle they have going on with the Flash one-upping him all the time in Iris's eyes, as well as Barry starting to one-up him at the police department, just as slowly making Eddie hate the Flash and Barry Allen at the same time more and more. And once he finds out that they're the same person, once he finds out that Barry is the Flash, it's going to push him over the edge. So anytime you see Barry do something that could piss Eddie off, it's just another strike against him. Like, it's just going to come back to bite him in the ass with a giant yellow suit at super speed. Number 9, Diggle reacts to the Flash. I secretly wonder if behind the scenes they try to take where Diggle spits his belly burger out. There were so many people eating belly burger in this episode. This week's Flash sponsored by Belly Burger. This kind of sets off the secret identity thing where Oliver isn't super cool with everyone knowing his identity. Not everyone knows the Flash's identity, but by the end of the episode, everybody knows everything. Roy will totally learn who the Flash is next week, so everyone will be good. I also like the idea that Harrison Wells tried to get it out of Felicity too. He wasn't super sinister in this episode, but yeah, again, when you have a supercomputer that has access to all of time and space, that machine really is like his TARDIS. Not confirmed to be a time machine, but there are some theories about who he is that I'll talk about as we work our way through the list. Diggle's reaction though, just priceless. The episode itself got a little crazy, like it got a little out of control. This was just one of the more fun moments. I'm always really thankful for stuff like this. Number 8, Felicity and Caitlin Snow. So much nicer to have another girl around that just happens to be another genius. So in addition to just being a really awesome team up, I just love the idea of female team ups that tend to outmatch the male team ups. Like, I would pick Caitlin and Felicity against Barry and Oliver any day of the week. That actually kind of gets down to the idea of who would win in a fight, which superhero would win. And it's usually the superhero that is the least absent-minded. That's why Oliver kept getting the drop on Barry, just because Barry was flying blind the whole time. They also teased it, you may have missed it, but Felicity asked Caitlin to analyze DNA from Sarah's murder. That's going to come back in episode 9. They might mention it again on Arrow this week, which is episode 8, but episode 9 is the mid-season finale. That's going to be more of like a Sarah's murder identity episode. It's just another example of how they can trade things between shows in a real way without doing a direct crossover. Number 7, Oliver trains the Flash. Just a great, hilarious team-up moment the first time. Second time, got a little crazy. But again, it's just Oliver trying to pass on the wisdom to Barry. It's all about the responsibility that having powers brings. And he said it himself. Barry has the time to completely case every crime scene he enters before he gets into a battle. But he hasn't taken advantage of that. You could think of Oliver as being like the audience, being like, how come you didn't do this if you have super speed? You could have flown around here like a billion times and figured everything out. It's the same thing with Laurel becoming Black Canary. It takes them time to figure it out, and we're just watching that play out. The Flash is slowly going to evolve over time. He'll get better. He'll get new suits, like there's new Flash suits that'll be coming in the future. I think there's going to be at least one other version of the Flash suit this season, maybe 2. He doesn't have the emblem from the comics yet, like it's still a different color. Number 6, Harrison Wells versus the Arrow. I like the way Tom Cavanaugh played this. He actually made it believable that Harrison might not know who Oliver is. I think he totally does. Like, he might not have just had time to go ask the computer. I still find it kind of hard to believe that he didn't know though, so I think he was just messing with Felicity. I just love his quote though. I find the unknown to be dangerous and toxic. I have been reading those weekly comics, and they make it seem like he really is from the future. Like he has future tech we just haven't seen on the show yet. Number 5, the Flash gets whammied. Couple really important things to note here. The red eyes. Professor Zoom Really, any of the Reverse Flashes have red eyes, most notably Professor Zoom though. That doesn't necessarily mean that he got whammied by Roy G. Bigelow, or Rainbow Raider, however you want to think about him. But think about the way Barry acts in this episode. He acts just like the Reverse Flash would, or Professor Zoom. And even when he was fighting Oliver, when he was spinning around him really fast before Oliver escaped, that looked like the same move that the Reverse Flash did on Barry's mother when she died. So add to your theories that Grant Gustin being whammied could be the Reverse Flash, like a version of him from the future that had been whammied. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it'll be a completely different person, but I do like the idea that Grant Gustin himself could be playing the Reverse Flash. It would be a bit of a twist. Number 4, Oliver's baby daddy moment. We finally get a follow-up on what we're going to go ahead and we'll call it Connor Hawk for now. What else are you going to call that baby? Given the time frame of the scene from season 2 where we see like the flashback and learn about the baby, I would say the child is still in grade school, probably no older than like 6 or 7 at this point. If he was on the island for 5 years and that scene happened maybe like a year or so before he went to the island, that's just a guess, but essentially he's still like a really little kid. They're living in Central City. They even made it a point to have her talk to him on the phone just to confirm, just to let us know that there was a child. I don't necessarily think that it's going to get involved in any storylines this season, but I do think that it's going to come back at some point in the future. If Arrow runs for like 6 or 7 seasons, they could totally bring the kid on. And if he did come on, I think he would be Connor Hawk, like he would take on that role. It just feels like way too interesting of a storyline for them to explore. Number 3, the villains, Captain Boomerang and Rainbow Raider. I love that Caitlin actually took the name from Cisco. Usually Cisco gets to name everything. He's being called Chroma in the New 52 universe, but he was Rainbow Raider in the older comics. They could totally bring him back in episode 9. He could whammy someone and turn them into the Reverse Flash. I don't know how that would work. I'm so stuck on the idea of the red eyes and the Reverse Flash. Whenever I get to Easter eggs, I'll mention all like the color spectrum stuff, because they dropped a whole lot of Green Lantern references when they were talking about his powers, about Rainbow Raider's powers. Captain Boomerang is going to be like the Arrow part of the crossover. We'll see him in tomorrow's episode. I am curious to see how they explain his boomerangs. Really, I felt like the villains were the smallest part of this episode. They were like the red herring. Really, it was all about Grant Gustin getting his shit together. Like the villains just provided the mechanism for him to do that. Speaking of which, number 2, Oliver fights Barry. Really interesting fight choreography for this scene. I mean, how would someone with super speed fight a normal person? So there was like the slow-mo aspects of their fight where Oliver's like literally punching the air. And then there was the more clever stuff, like him turning Barry's weaknesses against him. Like the fact that he never cases any of the areas that he runs into. I feel like this is a good explanation for everyone that's asking why the Flash gets his ass handed to him every week. Like the villains are always able to get a drop on him because he is a total rookie with the powers. It's like he got a really fast car before he learned how to drive. So he's learning to drive with a car that's so powerful it can punch into other dimensions, phase through walls. You get the idea. Like it's going to be a disaster, but he'll get there eventually. And I did like the Diggle-Cisco moment where they were arguing about who would actually win in a fight. That's like the biggest nerd argument you could have inside an episode like this. And my number 1 moment, of course, Firestorm post-credits scene. I saw a few people that were confused by this on Twitter. So that's Robbie Amell. He is essentially fused with Professor Martin Stein. So that's why they look a little bit different. Like they merged 2 people into one person. And when he's giving off all the flames, that's what his form is going to look like. Like he's not going to have a crazy suit yet. It was basically like our first full look at what Firestorm is going to look like. Obviously, he'll get a haircut and clean himself up a little bit. But while we're seeing him there, he has Martin Stein inside his head. He's being played by Victor Garber. We might get a tease for him in episode 9 in the mid-season finale, just a little one. He will show up in episode 10 though. I think it's interesting. I mean, I'll be most interested to see what he looks like when they clean him up and he tries to start using his powers for real. They've actually spent a lot of time talking about it, the producers and the actors. Essentially, he's going to be a total whack job when they first find him. I mean, he's got 2 personalities inside his head, like 2 minds, so he can barely function, and it's going to cause like a lot of internal strife with Team Flash. Just in general, though, get really excited about that. Firestorm, going to be totally awesome. I'm a huge fan of Robbie Amell, so can't wait to see him again. Let me know, though, what was your favorite moment from the episode, and here's my big question for you guys. Do you think that it's better that they only do crossovers like this every once in a while, or do you want to see them do stuff like this all the time? I kind of think it would get a little too crazy if they tried to do stuff like this all the time. I mean, it makes it extra special when they only do it once or twice a season. But here's some of the Easter eggs that I spotted in the episode. So the building that Barry repainted in yellow at the beginning was actually said Palmer Technologies on it from Ray Palmer, the Atom, as we know. Cisco had that giant Yoda reference, which is so funny given that we just got the Star Wars trailer. One of the coolest ones, though, was when they were talking about the emotional spectrum, as in Green Lantern. whenever they flash Barry with the A-Team van, we'll call it like the Flash van, but they flashed him with the colors purple, blue, green, and pink, which in the Green Lantern universe represent compassion, hope, will, and love. I know everyone wants to see Hal Jordan on the Flash at some point. It's totally possible. I mean, I think we'd see the minor Green Lantern characters before we saw Hal Jordan. Like, that'd be a really, really big deal, but it's totally possible. So another really big Easter egg, Captain Singh, turns out he's a gay character. I think that's really interesting. I didn't know that he was a gay character, but his boyfriend in the comics is the Pied Piper, the Rogue. He's actually already been cast on the show. He's going to show up in episode 10, which is also the same episode that we'll see Firestorm in. Let me know if you saw any other Easter eggs, just write them below in the comments. I'm sure there were a whole bunch in the episode. Like, they're really cramming it in just because it's such a big crossover event. But here is the big news. So Manu Bennett is supposed to be coming back in the back half of the season. I know everyone cheer. This is going to be awesome. No idea what kind of a story he's going to be involved in, but he'll be back in episode 14 as Slade Wilson. They didn't say if it was going to be a flashback or if it would be in present day, like if he's going to break his way out of the Argus prison. Here is the Suicide Squad news. This is actually a really big deal. Jared Leto's going to play the Joker, which is totally amazing. He could cross over into the other DC films. No real word on that. I mean, it's still really early. Margot Robbie is going to play Harley Quinn. Will Smith is going to play Deadshot. Jai Courtney is going to play Captain Boomerang. Cara Delevingne is going to play Enchantress. And Tom Hardy is going to play Rick Flag. Tom Hardy is supposed to be the leader, so Rick Flag will be the leader of the Suicide Squad. They haven't cast Amanda Waller, but here's the big thing. They're looking at Oprah. Like, they might cast Oprah as Amanda Waller, which just sounds crazy to me. It's still really preliminary, so if they announce some more big news, I'll do another video for it. The real news, though, is Arrow, tomorrow, second half of the crossover. Be sure to subscribe to get my video. I'll post it after the episode airs. After this week, next week will be episode 9 of both shows. Then it'll go on break for mid-season break. It'll be back at the end of January, though. I think Arrow came back in the second or third week of January last year, so it's only going to be off the air for like 4 weeks. It's not going to be a big deal. Just a quick reminder, new mobile links up here if you're on your mobile phone or on your tablet. It's the same as the links that I had over here. So right now, click here to get ready for Arrow tomorrow, and click here for last week's episode of The Flash. Thank you so much for watching, so let's all high five. I will see you guys tomorrow.